Welcome to the Off the Clock podcast on what stories tell us about the future.
The end of the world. What is it like?
That's a good question. Several stories about the future try to predict what it will be like.
What do these stories have in common? Most of them are about the end of the world.
These stories talk about the end of the world, what it would be like, and what would happen if we were to go through it.
We have a few examples, such as a radio play called War of the Worlds. This radio show aired on October 30th, 1938.
The radio play was about aliens invading New Jersey.
If you were one of the few people to tune in early, you would know that this was satire and not a real invasion.
But if you were one of the people who tuned in late, you were most likely one of the few who thought it was real.
Several people tuned in late and missed the warning that it was just a play. Those people panicked, thinking it was real and that the end of the world was really happening.
It is things like that radio show that make us really think about what might happen in the future.
Let's look at another example. A tourist went to Chernobyl to see what it was like.
While the tourist was there, she saw events from the aftermath in the ruins left behind, all of the abandoned buildings and other equipment.
The land remains radioactive and inhabitable. Of course, this is a real event that occurred in the past.
The ruins of Chernobyl give us an example of what it would be like if there was another radioactive blast. Chernobyl is now abandoned because the area was radioactive.
One of the quotes that we can look at from Nuclear Tourist is 28 years after the explosion of a nuclear reactor at Chernobyl, the zone, all but devoid of people, has been seized and occupied by wildlife.
Imagine if that happened in the future. We can use this event from the past to imagine what our future would be like.
Let's look at another great example, a poem called The Beginning of the End of the World.
The meaning of this poem is that even small things can have bigger meanings and hold more significance.
One of the quotes from the poem is, "Maybe the morning roaches walked in the kitchen bold, with they bad selves marching up out of the drains. Not like soldiers, like priests, grim and patient in the sink."
The cockroaches resemble the survivors who could endure the hardest challenges and still thrive.
A second part of the poem we can look at is, "Maybe the morning we rose from our beds, as always, listening for the bang of the end of the world. Maybe when we only heard a tiny tapping and saw them dark and prayerful in the kitchen. Maybe then when we watched them turn from us faithless at last and walk in a long line away."
When they say, "the morning we rose," they mean that some people expected the end of the world, some didn't, and they thought there would be a bang at the end of the world.
The bang never occurred, and the only noise that could be heard were the cockroaches.
The next thing we will look at is a poem called The Powwow at the End of the World.
This poem is from the perspective of a Native American tribe leader forgiving the people for what is happening to the world.
One of the quotes we have is, "I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after that salmon swims upstream, through the mouth of the Columbia, and then past the flooded cities, broken dams, and abandoned reactors of Hanford."
The lady says she will forgive once a salmon swims through the flooded cities and passes abandoned nuclear reactors, saying that the world has already been destroyed. These are already ruins. There are already ruins.
She is also talking about what she will do as an indigenous lady at the end of the world.
The next quote from the powwow at the end of the world is, "I am told by many of you that I must forgive, so I shall when I am dancing with my tribe during the powwow at the end of the world."
She is saying that when the world does end, she and her tribe will dance together, and when that happens, she will finally forgive the colonizers who helped destroy the world.
In this quote, "Yet across immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours, are to the beasts in the jungle, intellect vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came to the great disillusionment." They are describing the beauty at the end of the world.
Beauty can be seen in the chaos of the end of the world. Quotes like the one stated above may help you better understand the beauty within.
The next quote is, "As long as the sun and moon are above, as long as the bumblebee visits the rose, as long as rosy infants are born, no one believes this is happening now." This quote explains how people won't know it's the end of the world till it happens.
Let's take a look at another quote. "And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone."
This quote highlights the indifference of nature to human conflicts and existence. It suggests that if humanity were to disappear entirely, nature, like birds, trees, and even the seasons, would continue to unaffected. The world would go on without noticing our absence, emphasizing the idea that human concerns and wars are insignificant in the grand scheme of the natural world.
The final quote we will be looking at is, "Outside the garage chimed and lifted its doors to reveal the waiting car. After a long wait, the door swung down again."
The story the quote came from talks about a mechanical house that does things on its own. Everything around it has been destroyed, yet it remains intact. The owners have died, their shadows forever imprinted on the house. The garage door closes because no one was there to get in the car and pull out. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll catch you next time on Off the Clock.